quarters. That's it. 2 quarters left. Maybe a little less for some, maybe a little more, but the clock is winding down. It's always winding down, ticking off seconds, ticking off days, ticking off years. What are we going to do with that time that's left? What are we going to do in our final quarters? Because those are all we have. That's it. No redo, no best of 7 series. One game. How are we going to play? The movie clip shown there is from Friday Night Lights. It's about a Texas high school that has reached the state championships, but they are playing a bigger, stronger, faster, better team. The first half hasn't gone too well for them. It's now halftime, and the coach has a word for his team. 2 quarters. That's all you have left of football. The first half is over. They can't replay it. They have to forget it and move forward. But how? Be perfect, says the coach. Perfect means that you know and your team knows and your family knows that you did all you could. You couldn't have done any more. You gave all you had for yourself and for them. You left everything on the field. Perfect means finishing the game with no regrets, so that when the game is over and your team is around you, your coach is around you, your family is around you, whatever the scoreboard says, you know you couldn't have done any more. That's playing with no regrets. He says, because these last 2 quarters are forever. They're your last 2 quarters. They will stick with you forever. There will be no new memories, no new games. These 2 quarters are your forever. So look around. This is your team. Hold them in your heart. Be perfect and play with no regrets. So what about us? Life is ticking away. We know that. We can't relive days gone by, though we often sometimes try. For some of us, the first half didn't go too well. For some of us, it went great. But there's still time on the clock. And Paul has a word for us, originally directed to the Christians at Rome, but still for us. It's about how we should live, how we should play this game in whatever quarters we have left. And it comes from Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. He writes, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers and sisters, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds, so that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. Present yourselves. That's what Paul says. Paul pleads with us. He says, I exhort you, I plead you, I urge you by God's mercies, not for me, says Paul, not for your own sense of pride, not for your own success, but by the mercy of God. What is the mercy of God? It's the mercy of God that caused him to hear the Israelites when they were crying out when they were in slavery in Egypt. It was the mercy of God that led them to liberation in the Promised Land. It was the mercy of God that forgave the Israelites again and again and again and again and a few more agains. It was the mercy of God that delivered them again and again. The mercy of God that healed them again and again. It is the divine mercy as revealed in Christ which has made every reader and hearer of Paul's letter, every person sitting in this church today, what he or she is. It's the mercy of God that caused Jesus Christ to come and die for us, though while we were still sinners. It is by the mercy of God that we were adopted as sons and daughters of God's. It is by the mercy of God that we are no longer slaves to sin and our desires, but servants to righteousness. I appeal to you, says Paul, by the mercy of God, to present yourselves as a living, holy, and pleasing sacrifice to God. This is your reasoned worship. It isn't adrenaline. It isn't last game emotions. Paul's appealing to our reason. For all God has done, for all God is doing, give yourself to God's cause. Play the game for God, not for yourself. Give your whole lives over to God, to be used. Don't hold anything back. Live for God. Paul isn't asking us to die for God. Paul isn't asking us to be martyred. Paul is asking us to live for God. And that's probably the hardest thing anyone could ever ask you to do. Live for somebody else. Live the totality of your being for something else. He wants us to live for God. In other words, to live like we are redeemed. To live like we are redeemed. I used to love going to the arcade when I was a kid. When my mom and my sister would go shopping at the mall near our house, I would always go to Flickers. It was this arcade there. And every Christmas, I'd get a blue kind of velvety sack full of tokens. And I'd always just go to Flickers. And I'd always play the games that would earn me tickets. I'd play skee-ball, the basketball quick shot, whack-a-mole, anything that could earn me tickets. Because there was a giant lion held captive behind that clear glass counter that had all of the prizes. I was going to get that lion. I wanted that lion. That lion was going to be mine. And so I put in my work. I played me some skee-ball, learning how to bounce it right off the wall into those corner pockets up there, working on my basketball shot that was never any good, whacking moles left and right, and earning my tickets. I had shoe boxes full of them under my bed until one day I had enough. And I went into Flickers and I redeemed that lion. I redeemed it. It's my lion. I redeemed it. It's now mine. I named it Lewis. This is my lion, Lewis. It's mine. It is still my lion. When you redeem something, it's yours. Paul says, live like you are redeemed. You're not yours. Paul says you are bought with a price. You are God's. When Moses went to Pharaoh and said, let my people go, he didn't say, let my people go so we can go party it up in the wilderness with a golden calf. He said, let my people go so they may serve the Lord. And not liberated just to be liberated, liberation to serve. We are redeemed by God. So Paul tells us, present yourselves. That's an act we have to do. Present yourself. Whenever you present something, it's kind of in this vulnerable state because everybody's looking at you as you are presenting it. It's throughout the Bible as people present themselves to God. Present yourself to God. You may be God's by his redemption, but have you made that conscious choice to say, here I am. I am thine, O Lord. Take me as I am. Not just our spiritual selves, not just ourselves on Sunday morning, but our whole selves. When Paul says, present yourselves, the words he used is the summa, which represents everything you are. Your body, your mind, your soul, your strength, your resources, everything. It is the totality of your being. Present yourself to God. Because this right here, this right now, these last quarters, well, this is your forever. Memory is a powerful thing. I probably don't have to convince you much of that. Memory is a powerful thing. You know of tradition. You know how certain memories can haunt families for generations.